Well, thanks so much for still staying with us. Now, the Zambian government has deployed military personnel to patrol the northern circuit and Copperbelt provinces in order to curb rampant smuggling of meal into the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. Now, speaking at a joint press briefing in the capital city, Lusaka, Defense Minister Ambrose Lufuma and his Home Affairs counterpart, Jack Mwimbu, discloses that the move is due to the threat of the virus that may cause national food insecurity. Mr. Lufuma says to mitigate the shortage in affected places, the Zambian Police Service, the Correctional Service would deliver more meal to revive supply at an affordable price. And Mr. Mwimbu has warned farmers against selling their land to foreigners because such may hamper crop production in seasons to come. He has since reiterated government stance that no maize will leave Zambia without a permit. The shortage of meal, being on the Copperbelt province is causing panic buying among citizens that keep flocking to retail outlets in desperate attempts to access the staple food. But we ask tonight, what are some of the solutions that we could use to ensure that we curb smuggling? Are these solutions that government is providing effective? But also, how can we take advantage of a population of more than 400 million people around our neighboring countries to ensure that we get as much as more foreign exchange as possible? Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba is joining us tonight on this edition of Diamond Live. Ambassador, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of Diamond Live. Let's begin off with your thoughts on the measures government has put in place to curb smuggling.
They caused the crisis. We had sufficient maize. We had harvest from 2019, 2020, 2021. In fact, by the time they were coming in office, there was already an export ban because the previous government had said they shouldn't go beyond 1 million metric tons. They found maize, if you look at the statistics, 1.5 million metric tons. 1.3 was held by Food Reserve Agency, 1.2 million, and 300,000 was held by both millers and grain traders. So we had sufficient meal. What has caused the crisis? This government immediately embarked on large-scale export of this maize. They exported to Zimbabwe, they exported to Tanzania, they exported to Kenya, and there's been consistent export to the DRC. Then coupled with later export of meal approved by government, the export of our national stock was very careless. It didn't take into consideration the requirements, national requirements, the heavy reliance on the new crop that is yet to come. And the farming season has been bungled heavily, where there was late distribution of fertilizers, and we expect a poor crop this year for many factors, including poor distribution. We've had floods, we've had late onset of rainfall, and the maize across the country is dry and poor. So we'll have poor harvest, coupled with the stock that we had that have been exported. To put it very simply, this country doesn't have maize. If I look at the statistics that was released by Honorable Minister,
I was about to come to that because the Minister says that we are food secure at the moment.
So he's been repeatedly stating that. And we warned him that what they were doing was, first of all, dangerous and careless. But he kept on repeating, even in Parliament, even as late as 2 weeks, he kept on saying the country is food secure, the country has enough maize stock, and that exports will not be stopped. And here we are. Look at the numbers that he released last week, that we have 352,000 metric tons. That's below the national strategic minimum levels that you're supposed to have. Remember, we set up the Food Reserve Agency to stock at all times at least 500,000 metric tons. Why 500,000 metric tons? Is because your national consumption is about 150,000 metric tons. So it gives you 3 months in case of any eventuality, any disaster, any difficult. It gives government 3 months to then import while it's using.
Yeah, well, those in government, arguing that even under your reign, during this period, we would literally face the same challenge where there's a bit of some rampant shortage of, mealie meal, especially on the copper belt during this period between September and, somewhere about, in May. The Patriotic Front equally had challenges in terms of smuggling. And this really is not new to many that, understand the time that we're at the country. What really is the difference between what used to happen under your reign as a Patriotic Front and what is happening now?
We had maize. So if there's a shortage, you just, because remember what the Food Reserve Agency holds is a strategic reserve. That's all it has, strategic reserve. So if you see a shortage in between harvests, when you are, when you've offloaded the maize and you are waiting for the next harvest, you release from your strategic reserve. That's the difference. They don't have in the strategic reserve. They are considering imports. What they have is under 2 months supply to the country, and that's extremely dangerous because it allows the market to speculate. And by the way, DRC and the word smuggling is shameful in this day and age. That's trade we need to exploit. If milling is costing 750 or 1,000 kwacha a bag, afford our people to sell. That's lucrative income for our people.
Well, you arrested the people when they tried to smuggle, when they tried to trade in, maize out of the DRC Congo. What is different?
I've always condemned government that's a yawning market. Treat it as a market, and when you have a shortage, treat it as a market issue that needs to be resolved.
So people should be allowed to sell to the DRC Congo without the permit? Because I think that the challenge really here has been about, if you want to sell maize to the DRC Congo, Tanzania or Malawi, have a permit.
You know that our small and medium enterprises, micro traders, don't even know how to obtain a permit. They don't even know where Ministry of Agriculture is. Most of our people, even now, the trouble you have with street vendors is first they don't even have trading licenses. This is a highly informal economy, and you're trying to apply formal processes. What we have is just a self-created crisis by the state. Now we have declared maize a contraband. It's literally an illegal commodity, where now we are deploying army, we are deploying ZNS, paramilitary, and I saw the statement by the minister. It sounds like we are back in the 70s, where there's been no commercial thinking by government. For me...
So according to you, what we should do, Ambassador, is leave the borders open and let people...
In fact,
without control,
open big warehouses all along our border areas. What we need to do is a farm for 400 million people. In the region, the only countries of surplus is just Zambia, Tanzania, and Malawi. There is this perpetual shortage. So why do you plan for 3 million metric tons? Why do we plan for 2 million metric tons per year? Why are we growing food for 20 million people when we're supposed to grow for 400 to 600 million people? We should just change the thinking. This crisis is not going away. It hasn't gone away for the last 60 years. It's our mindset that are stuck in the past, where we think that the police can control a market issue. The rise of the black market is because the current market has failed. That's the only reason the black market arises. That's the only reason people are walking across using bush paths.
So, Ambassador, so this intervention to deploy officers will not work?
It won't work. It hasn't worked. They'll kill people. They'll even be more unpopular. Kaunda tried this method. He tried to deploy it.
Because you tried also this method.
You will just kill people. It's just not necessary. What you need to do is...
Is this a crisis?
It is a crisis. So the mindset is, how do you resolve it? So if you have 352,000 metric tons of maize, which just gives you 2 months, why don't you immediately plan for importation? And remember, we have the Biosafety Act of 2007 that bans GMO. Because the only area where you can bring either millie meal or maize is South Africa. But South Africa's maize is contaminated because it has GMO. They grow GMO like Malawi does. So you have to look at non-GMO countries. You just have to face the situation. Don't deploy the police. The police, you will be reporting deaths. Our people will not stop trading across the border. Because they know... They know how lucrative it is. They know that if I buy a millie meal here in Shibomba, in Shakwatenchito, the mines are closed. Ndo nashita ubungo wa 200 kwacha nashita utatu. Nalabuya kuna 6,000 kwacha. You mean they won't take the risk?
So, Ambassador, I mean, if this is a crisis, what immediate interventions is the Patriotic Front proposing at this time?
It's a market issue. Resolve it with market solutions. There's a deficit. Look for your surplus and flood the market. Deploying the police to man a market issue is not the solution. Dr. Kaunda tried it. Every government has tried it. It doesn't work. It just bleeds lives. Someone will be shot. There will be a policeman that will try to stop this truck, that will try to stop this bicycle. They will not agree. There will be a shootout. Someone will die. It just leads to loss of lives. And we politicians have the habit of not learning from history. When I watch those two ministers, it's like they're occupying that office for, it's like we're having this country for the first time. They have no sense of history. They can't even reflect. I realize that national food security is national security. I agree with that. But how do you resolve the crisis? That's where we differ with their method. First of all, remember, no one has apologized for the export of maize. The current shortage is because of the wanton export this government engaged in. No one has apologized. No one has been fired.
So, according to you, it's nothing to do with those, colleagues with bicycles and motorbikes that are, taking the...
They are responding merely to a market issue. There is a deficit in the Congo. During this period, there is a huge deficit. Let's respond and supply that market. Let's not criminalize the process. Let's not bring soldiers we want to Akwalisa. It's not fair. And let me emphasize, the current maize shortage is not as a result of famine. It's not as a result of crop failure. It's just as a result of poor administrative decision done by Ministry of Agriculture and FRA and the entire government, because they authorized the export. Now that they've exported the entire maize, they want to shift the burden to our people that are trying to benefit from just a market issue. There's a deficit here and there's a yawning market, and our people have seen an opportunity.
So there's a deficit in the Congo, but also there's high demand back here in the country. How do we strike a balance?
We strike a balance. Let's start with an apology. Can they apologize for the mistakes they made? They've exported over 1 million metric tons. We warned them that you cause the price of milk to go up because you reduce your national strategic reserve. Before you embark on any export, they should have looked first at the market. Let the millers export. Let the grain traders, let the commercial farmers export before you export your own reserves. But they went on wanton export, and they don't want to apologize for that. For me, let's start with an apology from the president and from his minister. Can we see action? This country has mechanisms in which to identify what they call national food balance. Every day you're supposed to know the food availability balance. There are strategic committees that have been set up just for that purpose. They conduct crop forecast survey every time they know what is available in the country. Why did they ignore all those instruments that are available before the Minister of Agriculture and the Office of the Vice President? We can't wake up into a crisis like we've woken up. Where have they been? The details are with them. Every week they are given. So what needs to be done, first of all, is an importation. Admission, first apology, admit you have a crisis, look at your reserves that you have. They'll just last you a month or two at best.
So at the moment we shouldn't export. After they apologize, then we should stop exporting.
The suspension of export is very good. But I am against the informal trade that takes place between our borders and DRC, where you are criminalizing and you are deploying the police. Like I said, that will just end up in a loss of life. The last 60 years, we've tried that method. It doesn't work. In fact, encourage our people to trade. Let them make a small buck. They are unemployed. There's no money on the copper belt. That province is dead economically. And that's why you've seen a flood of everyone. Every household tried to export.
I know you touched a bit on this, Ambassador, Mwamba. You touched a bit on the agriculture sector under the UPND, but I'd like for you to extensively now touch on what your thoughts are on the agriculture sector under the UPND, especially for this, for this season.
Yeah. So we have a crisis. There will be proper crop failure this year. We may be lucky if we hit a 1 million metric tons. So our planning should just not be for this period of deficit. It should be for the whole year. And I hope that the fertilizer distribution will be better. They've been cancellation already, but they still have adequate time to do it properly. Remove the corruption from the process. Remove this idea of giving your friends contracts for fertilizer. Plan properly. And ensure that fertilizer is within warehouses and storage sheds by August.
Would you really say that the reason for why government has failed to stabilize the price of mealie is because we sold most of our maize from our strategic reserve, or what do you think is really the major reason why our mealie was really short, up above what it was selling under your reign as a Patriotic Front?
So I'll tell you, I was permanent secretary in Northern Province, and we had this crisis in 2011, and we had ordered that because the sheds, the warehouses, sometimes these tarpaulins had surfaces, maize is stored in provinces, and we did an audit. So sometimes what the numbers say is not what you find in the sheds, because there's theft, there's leakages, there's also waste where the maize hasn't been stored properly. Warehouses leak. Fumigation systems sometimes are not done and are not done regularly because FRA doesn't have money. So you do an on-spot assessment. So even the numbers when FRA says you have 352,000 metric tons, I can guarantee you it may even be half of that. Yeah.
Well, you two could be part of the conversation by calling us on the number that is reflecting on your screen shortly. Also, I'll be reading some of the messages that are coming on to the to our Facebook page, Diamond TV Zambia. Let's talk about another issue. I know that Chesa wants us to remain on this issue first, but another issue that is of great concern, especially on the COP about Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, is issues pertaining KCM and Mopani. The president did commit that first quarter of the year, 2023, Mopani and KCM will be unlocked. But up until now, the president has remained tight-lipped. Even the minister himself of Mines, Pokabuswe, the only thing that he said was government was consumed with the democracy summit, and that is what caused the delay in making the announcement. But what are your thoughts as a Patriotic Front?
It's just a usual thing.
Ambassador, but before you can respond to that, let's pick our first call, and then obviously Andrew, you will get into our Airtel messages just after the call.
Hello.
Please go ahead with your contribution tonight.
Yes. You know what the Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba is saying, that is very true. The problem of these our colleagues in UPND, they have overrated themselves. You see, immediately when you overrate yourself, even as an individual, you are bound to make fatal and grievous mistakes. And they don't want to agree that they are making mistakes. That's the problem. I saw Honorable Mutolo Piri last in Parliament before they adjourned Synedia, saying that we have got enough maize stocks and we are not going to stop exporting. On its own, as you can see now, we are now in a disaster. Mutolo Piri morally is supposed to resign. That's what it should be. But now he's still a minister. And now they say we must import meal from other countries. Me, I frequent some countries here in the SADC. Meal in the SADC already region, like for example in South Africa, a 20 kg bag of breakfast there is over 200 kwacha. Now who is going to afford to import? Me, in the compound, I cannot afford to import. What they are doing is they are creating opportunities for themselves. That's what they are doing. Even this export of meal to the GRC, it is them who are getting papers. An ordinary person in the compound there, even you, Cheswa, you don't even know how to export that meal using a paper going to DRC. This is the problem that we are facing. We are having a government that wants to enrich themselves so that tomorrow they say that they are the richest in this region. That's the problem. Honorable Emmanuel Mwamba, continue hammering, continue, and we have the solution ourselves. and Emmanuel Mwamba as the solution. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Lingesu, all the way from Livingston, thank you so much for being part of the program tonight.
Well, before Ambassador can obviously respond to that, we'd like to just remind our viewers tonight that Airtel has amazing bundle offers for you to enjoy on your 4G smart box and 4G pocket Wi-Fi. Now with your Zali, you can get 10 GB, which will give you about 10 hours of movie streaming, or 130 hours of music streaming, or 160 hours of web browsing, and emails of up to 64 hours on your socials. Your 4 Zali will get you around 80 GB, which gives you around 80 hours of movie streaming, or 1,040 hours of music streaming, or 1,280 hours on the web, or catching up on emails, or up to 512 hours on your socials. With your 1 PIN, you will now get 222 GB, which gives you around 220 hours of movie streaming, or 2,800 hours music streaming, 3,500 hours on the web, and catching up on your emails. You can't miss out this Airtel offer. Remember that it's your Zali, your 4 Zali, or your 1 PIN, your bundle, your way. Visit any Airtel shop, any Airtel Money branch, or My Airtel app to order this offer. This offer is, of course, exclusive to the 4G smart box, as well as the 4G pocket Wi-Fi. Ambassador, you were responding obviously to Andrew's question, but obviously we would like you also to respond to, if you would like to contribute to what the caller just said.
The caller is very right. This government caused the crisis. This government exported our strategic reserves. We do not have adequate maize. And our people, this is a highly informal economy. And to demand that they get export permit for their maize is just to literally, bar the trade. While those that are able, the elite then can go to Ministry of Agriculture and collect these export permits. Our people do not know how to do those things, and they are just denying them an opportunity. And like I said, economically, the Copperbelt province is dead. That's why everyone has seen an opportunity to make some small money. But the crisis has been caused by government. Coming to the issue of KCM and Mopani, unfortunately, there have been too many promises on it. As soon as the president came, one of his first press conferences was that he was going to resolve this by the end of the year. December 2021 came, it wasn't resolved. It was pushed to first quarter of 2022. We are now in 2023. Our view has always been that ZCMI should be tasked to run those 2 mines. There is no need to look for an investor or to ask Vedanta to return. ZCMI can run those mines. I always give an example where Mwamba Collieries and ZESCO, Mwamba Collieries power companies owed about $500 million, and ZESCO found $300 million to give Mwamba Collieries. We can't find $300 million to ensure that those 2 mines begin to operate. And remember, with the copper prices that are so high, the benefit is immediate. As soon as the mines are operating at optimal standard, the return is almost immediate.
The legal battles, in these mines we're talking about, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, and perhaps there could be the reasons why this government has taken a long time to resolve these issues, because your government is the one that started these legal battles.
So it was very simple. We need to go back. Why was Vedanta's mining license revoked? And why was the mine put under liquidation? It's because they were a bad investor. They were not paying taxes. They had accumulated bills to contractors over $200 million. They were not paying utility companies like ZESCO. They were owed over similar amounts of $200 million. They had accumulated a debt of $1 billion. How do you allow such an investor who's just bleeding your natural resources and not committing themselves? There was a decision. We might not agree on the mechanisms of liquidation or appointing a liquidator, but Vedanta were a bad investor, and government was forced to take action. Court processes, I understand, but the mine belongs to government. As court processes are going, the lives of our people have to go on. You can't halt because they are court processes. Those mines, give them to the same mines. Don't look for any investor. Whichever investor is coming is going to exploit the assets of KCM and Mopani. They are going to go to a bank using Mopani and KCM assets. They'll get a loan from the bank using Mopani and KCM assets. The same thing as ZCMI can do.
Others from within the Patriotic Front Central Committee feel that Vedanta should be given back the mine, and they say that is a better evil Mwamba says that. Don't you
So
think perhaps is a better evil?
It's like the two ministers that had the press conference today, where they never learn from history. They never learn that the deployment of security to the border areas ends up in death. Why would you give Vedanta for 20 years? This is a mine that was worth $650 million. And at the time we're selling it at a market value of $450 million. Vedanta got it for $25 million. They had their return within 90 days. And they had been posting profits from then on, but they declared losses and refused to pay taxes to ZRA for 20 years. So for me, it's irresponsible to give the mine back to Vedanta. Mopani is on better state. I think there are no legal encumbrances. I've condemned, the transaction between Glencore and Mopani. I think that it should be cancelled. We grab back our marketing rights. Don't even pay them a single way because that deal was bad. But take over the mines, give them to ZCCMH, let them run. We've said for mines, the large-scale mines in Solwezi and in Northwestern Province, we need to have ZCM participate. The deal for First Quantum, I think, and ZCMH is not fair, where now 20% shareholding has been reduced to it from dividends to a royalty payment of 3.1% per year. We think that that's not a good deal. We just need to tighten. We monitor production volumes, that they are not cheating on us, they are not cheating on taxes, so that then we can pay, they can pay proper taxes.
Let's talk to our second caller, calling us from Lusaka. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Go ahead with your question or contribution tonight.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mwamba.
Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Go ahead with your question or contribution.
Yes, ndipo kutaka contribute bali ya shidia bungaidi. Shupire. Mr. Mwamba from Rwanda, fintu turu, and we saw your government into mwalipo fintu fyalenda kwa bwino. But as a former youth, we thought maybe that we change government fintu fyala bwino than your mwalimu PF. But we see that now fintu filia vipira because PF yalishire sana mataba yengi sana, I remember. And the government ile yalishisha mataba yakwe bati yalianda tamatana tukwata yengi sana yakwa tuwalirangu 5 years. But now I think bamba kula tupanisha fe because now tuambo kula shoto obunga tule shoto obunga from country. So please, Mr. Mwamba, continue giving this government checks and balances so that if you have a chance to bounce back, maybe we can vote for you again. Thank you.
To Derek Loshi. Paul Kalima on Facebook says, Ambassador, good evening. This is an embarrassment. A country that exports maize to start importing. What do you think the UPND must do to stop this? Lawrence Chimukwaya says, they have exported everything. I have a farmer as a president. William Habenza says, many meal shortages were there even during the Patriotic Front government in office. This is why they brought those solar milling plants. Mr. Mwamba is just trying to exploit on the ignorance of the masses. Yeah, those are some of the comments that are coming, through.
I can answer on the last one.
Yeah.
Every government battles for the lower price of milling meal. The purpose of those solar milling plants was to lower the cost of. It was never on the shortage. We're blessed. I think the only difficult period we have because of the weather was 2015, 2016. Even then, there was some record bumper harvest. Even when we had poor harvest, especially from the south, when we've had poor climate, our harvests have been, for the last 7 years, bumper harvests. So, and government, I was reading the statement in 2020 where Minister of Agriculture at the time stopped export. He says, we have just reached 1 million metric ton reserves and we don't want to compromise on that. And he stopped export at 1 million metric tons. At 352,000 for these guys, they have not stopped exports, as you saw even as late as last week. The gentleman is talking about that PF, there were also shortages. Like I said, there were shortages, but we had reserves of up to 1 million, 1.5 million metric ton. And it was easier to direct FRA to say release 200,000 metric tons to farmers. Because we should remember, to millers, we should remember that the millers go to the market on their own. They buy maize on their own. They store maize on their own. The Grain Traders Association They go to commercial farmers, they go to other farmers and buy. FRA just has this strategic national responsibility of where we buy from our small-scale farmers that were under FISIP, and then we store the maize. So there are many people that have in the market maize. So when you see a shortage like you would see in the PF, then you go to FRA and order them to release from the National Strategic Reserve to satisfy the market.
Let's talk about what your thoughts are on on the fact that we shouldn't be restricting people that want to sell their maize to the DRC Congo. If we had to apply your narrative, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, won't this country be in chaos now, where everybody, including Chesa, would want to run to the DRC Congo and sell the maize?
So for me, I'd like everyone who has an opportunity to go. I would set up warehouses at top border areas. Like I said, you have 400 million people around us. Just a minute.
Insecurity now.
We have 400 million people around us. Why are we planning small for 3 million metric tons? 3 million metric tons is for Zambia only. But your borders are porous. They're not even supervised or manned. So why do you plan small? Can we begin thinking big and grow for the 400 million people around us? Ukraine goes to war.
Do we have capacity?
Ukraine, yes. Let me give an example.
How easy will it be to regulate what goes out in terms of, you're talking about borders not being manned. The government is talking about now
closing the borders.
Much security at these borders.
So Ukraine goes to war. One single country, and it affects the world's grain production, grain market, prices of rice, maize go up, and fertilizer. One single country. Why can't we plan like that? Ukraine is even far smaller. We can, grow for SADC region and for Africa, for 1.3 billion people. We have a better weather, better soils, better climate, and industrious people. It can be done. But we love to think small. That is why we can deploy the entire army to the DRC.
Why didn't we do it under the PF?
That's why I'm aspiring for presidency. Some of this new thinking needs to bring to the forth. We submit, I write many times, what is government's response? The same archaic means and ways. We were warning them. You have 1.5 million metric tons. You do not have enough maize to embark on this ambitious export. Why were they exporting? They wanted to pay the farmers under the FISI program that FRA had bought from. We told them, the farmers are paid under your own money, under Treasury. Find money to pay the farmers. Don't touch the maize. They looked for a shortcut. And here we are. Yes, they sold the maize. Yes, they paid the farmer. And they thought they were saving money. But it's now going to cost us more. First, in security deployment. 2, in food imports. 3, in maize imports, even as far as Argentina or Ecuador or Mexico. It's going to even cost us more. Cheap, they say cheap is expensive. Here, they thought they were taking an easier route, a shortcut, and they thought they were going to easily find money and pay our farmers. Now it has cost this country.
Ambassador, smuggling is really a big issue. But let's talk about...
It's not an issue. We should even ban that word, smuggling.
Well, you raise also serious concerns. The PF, your Vice President earlier today was speaking towards the importation of mealie meal, and you claim it's GMO. Maybe give us a little bit of information on these allegations that the PF is raising.
Thank you very much. Because in the region, Cheswa, we have only 3 surplus countries: Zambia, Tanzania, and South Africa. Malawi hasn't done very well, and we know that South Africa, it has GMO crops. So mealie meal coming from South Africa will be GMO. This country, under the Biosafety Act of 2007, has banned imports of GMO. It has even provided for, I think you have to have consultation with the public for 30 days. Even after that consultation, when a decision is made, you have to label that maize as GMO. On all your packaging, there is a stringent requirement for GMO imports. Even transit, I see that they are saying that this maize, that mealie meal that they're importing will be for DRC. Even transit, the Biosafety Act says you need to go through that process, even if it's just
when the minister's got the mandate to do this. What makes you think there has not been any consultation?
No, following the law. They have to follow the law. We have to see the adverts. They have to consult for a period of 30 days. Even when the maize come, it has to be labeled. There is a and Section 11 of the same act, I was looking at it just this evening before I came, literally bans import of maize and mealie meal, because mealie meal and maize have been deemed as strategic national crops. Because remember, our staple food is maize, and you don't want your maize or their seeds or the country contaminated with maize. So I don't know how they are going to go around that.
How is Ambassador Mwamba going to reduce a bag of mealie meal? This is the biggest cry for the Zambian people out there.
Grow big, grow huge volumes. Recognize that Zambia is not an island. DRC will always be in deficit for the next 50 years. Angola is going to be in deficit because of their history for the next 50 years. Let's plan for those markets. Let's stop this small planning of 1 million FISI program supplies who will do 2 million metric tons. Let's stop that thinking. If we need to bring in commercial farmers on board to do just exactly for the export to the DRC, Angola and others, let's plan. Let's plan big. Let's stop thinking small. Let's stop criminalizing someone that wishes to make some small money across the border.
To what extent really is Zambia's exportation of maize a game changer when it comes to our foreign exchange? You speak of the fact that we are around a population of over 400 million kwacha, 400 million people.
Yes, it can be bigger than the mining sector. It can be bigger than tourism. Our biggest potential remains agriculture and in crop production. That's why I gave the example of Ukraine, which literally feeds the world. A small country competes with the US, with Brazil to feed the world. And the price of rice, price of wheat has gone up across the world because Ukraine is at war with Russia. We can make Zambia that Ukraine that can feed
As we
Africa.
conclude, Ambassador Mwamba, what should government now do? We are at a point now where people are panic buying on the COP about the prices of mealie meal have escalated to unprecedented levels in the history of this country. What should government now begin to look at to ensure that they stabilize?
Three things: moral, legal, and market response. Number one, moral. Someone must be fired. If the Minister of Agriculture and his team must immediately be fired for this crisis. Legal, deal around with the issues of imports and begin to import. Market, we have an opportunity for this coming season. Let's plan and plan better, and let's overcome this crisis. Because mealie meal, even without smuggling, is already very expensive. That was the crisis we had, is that the price of mealie meal has been going very, very high. The smuggling issue is just one of the small components to an already high mealie meal price. So I think those are the things that needs to be done immediately.
PF presidential hopeful and member of the Central Committee of the former ruling party, Patriotic Front, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba. It's always a pleasure having you on Diamond Live, speaking to the Zambians and those that are joining us live tonight in Southern Africa.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. You are in Southern Africa. This is a milestone. Congratulations to you, your team, and everyone else, and to the audience. In Southern Africa, welcome. This is a peace accord country.
Certainly. Well, we wrap it up. We're looking at maize smuggling. Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba was joining us. My name is Andrew Mwansa.
My name is Cheso Kapasa. We'll see you on Friday. Good night.